This is TWiT. All right. I think you probably were all on macOS Catalina beta, the public beta. I was on my laptop, but our desktops got Catalina. macOS 10.15 came out yesterday, and I think today we could just spend some time touring through it. There is a lot of difference. Let's start with iTunes. Gone.
What is that?
Gone.
What now?
Gone.
Yeah.
I had a caller.
Mr. Stark. Mr. Stark.
I had a
I
caller
don't want to go.
on the radio show saying, "What do I do now?"
It got snapped.
Well,
Apple snapped
you do it. You do it without iTunes, because iTunes has gone to that land of ghosts and winds. Yeah, which comes with like the first warning that if you are still syncing stuff via iTunes, hold off in Catalina for a while until you have you've listened to shows like this and been on message boards to find out exactly how like your old iPod Touch or your older iPhone or whatever interacts with it. I've already had one person on Twitter, and actually I also had a problem doing a sync, because the first thing I was checking out last night was really like, what is life without iTunes going to be like? And there are going to be like major adjustments. If you are in that minority of people for whom iTunes was a useful tool, and unfortunately I am one of those people, there are going to be some major adjustments, and you might not find compatibility just right yet.
So, okay. I mean, Apple's been moving us to Wi-Fi syncing and Wi-Fi backup for a long time on iOS. But I still think the fastest way, when you get a new iPhone, the fastest way to get it set up is take the old iPhone, connect it via a USB cable to a Mac, back it up, make sure it's an encrypted backup, use a password so all your passwords get backed up, and then restore it to the new phone. And that's easily the fastest way to do it. I could still do that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you just don't get to do it through iTunes anymore, because iTunes is now divided out into multiple apps. It's all in Finder, which makes complete sense now that it's not, the iPhone isn't the iPod, so it's not your music device. It's your mini computer.
Yeah.
So plugging it in and having it pop up in Finder makes a lot more sense now. So and the great thing is that once you connect it, you connect your phone, your iPhone to your Mac, and then you open a Finder window, and once you click on your phone, that interface looks exactly the same as it did when it was on iTunes.
They did zero work on that.
They did
right?
zero. It's taken directly from iTunes, so you can see there's the backups button, the encrypt local backup.
Is that meant to like shame you? Like they give you a 1980s interface so that they're trying to tell you it's time to move on? I don't know.
This is from Andrew Cunningham's, Ars Technica 8,000 word article, and I noticed for some reason Andrew's still using a 4S. And his battery is down to 7%.
You only did 8,000 words?
I didn't count. I have no idea. It's probably longer. So that's good. And so you can also do the updates this way. That's not changed. It's very much
exactly. I think it's good that they left that interface exactly the same. Like maybe it'll be nice for them to change eventually, but they gave us a big change as it is by moving away from iTunes and putting this interface in Finder. So if they would have changed that interface too, I think a lot of us would have been like, "What do I do?" But you get this.
Where's my carbon?
This sense of comfort. Yeah, you get a sense of comfort as soon as you click into that window and you go, oh, okay, this is good. Everything is exactly the way it should be. It's just in a different room now. It's really nice to kind of have that comfort level when you click into it. It's not scary at all.
It does make sense that music is now not in iTunes, but in music. That's a logical place to put it, and that's where you would get Apple Music. That's where your songs would show up. I presume that when I do the Finder sync, it's going to sync music the same way it did before.
There's a tab, yeah.
So that hasn't changed, and it still has the player, and all of the mini player is still there, so you haven't lost that. In fact, I was surprised. I didn't realize that it was in there still, but there is still the visualizer. So if you are like trippy visuals on your Apple Macintosh screen while you're listening to music, you can still do that.
You can still rip CDs, and you can still encode stuff, just like you can code your podcast like it was 1990 still.
So you do that in music, though?
Yes.
That's in the music thing. Same thing with media sharing. So that's the one thing that's going to be a little tricky is figuring out which of these apps you're going to go to do what you want to do.
The only thing that's gone is XML.
XML's gone. What is
Yes.
XML?
The stuff you
Exporting
used to be
and
able to
importing
export
files.
it, and then DJs would import it to
Oh,
do a
yeah.
whole
In
bunch
fact,
of fancy
Apple
DJing.
warned DJs not to upgrade to Catalina because you won't be able to export your playlists anymore to XML. So that'll happen eventually. It's
The XML part won't, but the functionality will return in a way that's no longer XML dependent.
so your DJ app will have to be smarter.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, everything will have to update to the glorious non-XML future.
Okay.
It's not a policy change where they're not allowing people access to data. It's just, they're just making it harder to access it.
Podcasts have their very own app because it is the podcast renaissance.
Could you tell it was a Catalyst app, Leo, when you looked at it? Could you tell it apart?
This is the iOS podcasts.
The iPad podcast app.
iPad
yeah.
OS.
Who knew? You guys knew, of course, because you're so smart. Oh, my God. So they used Catalyst, which is the technology formerly known as Marzipan, the way to take iOS apps and port them so they run natively on the Mac.
UIKit for Mac.
Why rewrite podcasts? I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
So instead of taking the iTunes podcast functionality, you're going to get the iOS podcast functionality.
And the app was much more updated.
Oh, yeah.
It's so indistinguishable that even the things that really bother me about the music and TV app navigation are reproduced exactly in the podcast app.
That's pretty funny. The TV app, then, is that also Catalyst? Is that TV Plus?
No, that's still iTunes code. So the music and the TV app are old iTunes code. So basically, they ripped the tabs out, slapped them down, and shelled them up. So they'd be their own thing, and then gave them a makeover so they'd all look similar. And the podcast app and Find My are the new Catalyst apps.
Okay. So you now have TV, music, podcasts, and syncing lives in Finder, as well as your menu bar, which is
And audiobooks have gone to the Books app.
Oh, okay, that's good to know. So my Audible books or books I buy on the iTunes store now will be played through the iBooks app. That makes sense.
Apple Books now, yeah. They got rid of all the eyes. They're murdering all the eyes.
They're murdering the eyes. The eyes are dead. Long live the eyes. Can you still family sharing for TV shows is in TV shows. Family sharing for music is in music. Oh, let's not forget, there's also arcade.
Yep.
Games go in arcade. Most of the iOS arcade apps are there, not all.
Yeah, I think they're trying. The ideal is for all of them, but they're not there yet.
And then, of course, you'll be able to use, this is exciting, your Xbox One controller, your PlayStation 4 controller on your Mac now, just as you do on your iPad, to play those games, or your Apple TV. So that's nice. Okay.
Rene, I'm jumping into almost review style real quick because I'm actually right now looking in the TV app. I hadn't popped into this yet. Rene, you might actually be able to address this better, but I can't seem to find a way to sign in with my current account for anything like Shudder TV, for example. I only see Try It Free, but I already have an account for Shudder. So
do you have a Shudder account in Apple TV, or do you have it separately?
Right, it's separately. So there's no way to sign in to an app on the TV app.
So here's our great pain right now.
Yeah.
It's all still broken and it's all still fiefdoms. And Apple tries as best as it can on iOS to make that seamless because the TV app will shoot you off into other apps. But on macOS, there is no Shudder Catalyst app, for example. There's no Canadian network apps. So it'll just not do anything. It'll just won't be able to play the stuff. And if you subscribe within channels, they don't give you credit for that in the app. And if you subscribe in the app, you're not subscribed within channels because they're separate systems still. So it is a whole lot of pain at the moment.
Yeah, at the moment, it's very frustrating. I want to be able to, I'm down with subscribing to something that I don't already have, but for those accounts that I currently have, I would much rather just sign into it. But I can see why
even worse
right
is
now
if you're outside the US, they have all these different licensing deals. So for example, CBS All Access will think it has a show, but it's really the licensed property of CTV. So when you try to do it on the TV app, it'll just kick you to CTV, and then it'll say, give me your cable login. And you'll say, I don't have cable. That's why I subscribed, moron. And it'll say, well, you can't play it. But on the Mac, it can't kick you anywhere. So you just stay there and burn. It's all fine.
And to add in, so this will work on all Macs from 2012 on, with one exception. To add insult to injury, my trash can Mac cannot be updated.
It can, but you have to hack it. Like you have to go into the forums and read the files you have to get, and sort of like what people have been doing with the cheese grater Mac Pros for years.
The power to be your best.
Oh, I'm so sorry I bought that thing. Can't tell you how sorry I am I bought that.
It's a great media server.
Yeah, except I can't put Catalina on it. My God.
As always, its best feature is as a static object. It's you put it on a shelf, you regard it.
Wonderful doorstop.